Hey, I know I haven't uploaded in a while, but I've been working on something. Stick with me to the end of the course, cause in this one, I am going to share with you my 3 years of web development experience, free of charge. We're going to look at everything from how to build websites from scratch, how to deploy them, and how to monetize them. Let's get started. By the end of the course, you will be able to build a website like this from scratch on your own, writing every line of code by yourself. For now, what I want you to do is bookmark this GitHub repo on your browser. Here, I have a list of resources you can use to build your own website. These include sites where I get my copyright-free images, videos, and icons, as well as other tools I use. Once you have this, we are going to need to go to Google and search for VS Code download. Then click on this link here to download Visual Studio Code for your operating system. While that's still installing, let's take a look at how websites are built. Now, all websites on the internet are written in a language called HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. This is the language you're going to be learning in this course. To get started working with HTML, you are going to need to create a folder on your desktop. Inside this folder, you are going to create a text document. Then, you are going to remove the extension txt and replace it with .html. Then, double-click on the file to open it in a browser. You will notice this page is empty, but open the document we created in Notepad and add the following code. When you go back to the page and press refresh, you will see that you have built your first website. I know it's lagging, but a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, or some shit like that. All the things we just did now can be done like 10 times faster on Visual Studio Code, but it's very important that you understand what Visual Studio Code is doing for you in the background. So once Visual Studio Code is installed, you are going to open it. Every time when I'm teaching a new language to new students, I always try to start by explaining the syntax of the language first. The syntax of a language is basically the grammar of that language. Basically, all the rules you need to be able to create your own sentences in that language. The syntax of HTML is very simple. HTML is a markup language and it is not a programming language. It basically uses elements to represent the structure of a website or a web page. For example, this is an element here. An element is made out of two tags, an opening tag and a closing tag. And sometimes you can have attributes which tell us something more about that specific tag. For example, in this tag here, I can have the attribute lang and en. This basically tells the browser that this paragraph here is in English. This other one, I can say lang and then say es, and that's Spanish. So, HTML syntax, elements, tags, and attributes, and that's it. You basically have all the knowledge about HTML syntax you are going to need. Now all that's left to do is learn all the tags that are required to build a website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this. And when you are in Visual Studio Code, you can press the exclamation mark and then press tab to generate the basic structure of a website. Every website on the internet has this structure, so Visual Studio Code will basically fill it in for you. The first line here basically tells the browser that we're using HTML5 as our markup language. The second tag here is our root tag, which is HTML. And you can see that the language of our website is English because of this attribute here. Inside our root tag, we are going to have two tags, the head as well as the body. The head contains everything the user doesn't see on the website, contains the metadata of the website. For example, if you happen to add your website to Google, all the tags about your website are going to be in the head of your HTML document. And everything the user can see on your website must be written in the body here. And that's it for the basic structure of a website. Once you are here, you are going to need to go to Extensions tab, and I'm going to have you install an extension called Live Server. Once this is installed, you can install another extension called Code, and that's it. So once you've installed those two extensions, what I want you to do is click this button here. As you can see, there's a Go Live button on the bottom right corner. Click it, and this will launch my web page here in Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize this and select my window here, and then reduce the size of this so that you can see both my code as well as the website I'm working on. So the first thing you can add in the metadata is the title of your document. This appears here. It's basically the name of your tab. So basically I'm going to change that to HTML course 1 and click on save. When I save this, you'll see that the title of our tab here changes as well. So that's the title tag. In the body of our HTML document, what I'm going to do first is show you how to do a comment. A comment in HTML is written like this. This is a comment. And basically, you can use this to leave notes for yourself, and it won't be rendered on your page. The first tag you need to learn in HTML are the headings. The first heading is H1 and is the biggest one. You can see heading 1. And these go from H1 to H6 and they differ in size, going from largest to smallest. Another one is H3. So if you are writing an HTML document and you need headings, you are going to be using these 6 headings here. You can use H1 here for the main heading and use the others for the subheadings. The next element we can use is called a paragraph, and that's denoted by the tag P. Everything inside this tag is going to be treated as a paragraph. So everything inside the P tag is going to be a paragraph. As you can see here, it's basically a wall of text. There are specific tags you can use to format text in HTML. So since I have this wall of text here, I can use the tag strong to make a certain portion of our HTML bold here. For italics, I can use the tag I like this. And as you can see, that portion of our paragraph here is written in italics. Oh, there's also the EM tag, which indicates emphasis on a specific phrase or word. This basically just changes your word slightly. If you are writing scientific text, you will need to learn 2 other formatting tags, which is sub. Let's say this one is sub. Sub basically represents something that is written in superscript. Let me make a clear example. Let's say I'm writing a mathematical equation and I have, let's say, 50 to the power something. I could say sub here and then say 50 to the power 50, and that would basically appear like this. The other 50 would be written in superscript. This works the other way around as well. You can also use the sub tag to write this one in subscript, and it'll put that one in subscript here. The best example I can use for this one is, let's say I'm writing the formula for water. I can say H, let's say 2 and then an O. Yeah, basically that's the formula for water represented in HTML. You'll notice that our paragraph here appears as a block of text. So what if I wanted to create a new line in between them? I would go in between the text here. I can use white spacing to make things clear here. As you can see, if I save this, nothing changes over here. So the browser's basically gonna ignore all this space here. So here, to create a new line, I can use the tag br like this. And you can see that splits our text. Let's say I add another line. As you can see, I now have 2 lines in between our paragraph here. I can also use the tag hr to create a horizontal line in between the 2 paragraphs now. Another thing to note is that if I was to create another paragraph here, let's say I close off this paragraph and then I separate these two into 2 paragraphs. Let me remove these tags here and then save. As you can see, if I have 2 paragraphs, it's gonna automatically add a space in between them. Let me format this. It's starting to get ugly. Okay, let's say there's a scenario where I have to write an address for a store on my page. I can write it like this. I can wrap that within the address tag, and I can write my address in between a paragraph tag like this. It is possible to write an address without wrapping it in the address tag here, but it's important to represent addresses correctly so that a browser knows that this is an address. For example, if you were to add your page to Google and someone searches for your address, this is likely where Google is going to get that information. So it is very important that you represent it accurately. This video is getting too long. I'm going to have to wrap it up here. And in the next video, we are going to be looking at lists. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next lesson. In the last video, we looked at the structure of HTML, what HTML is, and how to format text in HTML. In this video, I am going to show you how to work with lists in HTML. There are basically 2 types of lists in HTML, an ordered list and an unordered list. The first list is OL. You can write an OL tag for ordered list, and your list items are going to be wrapped within an LI tag like this. Let's say I have a list of the best games. Okay, I'm gonna say Grand Theft Auto SA. As you can see, our first list item is added there. Okay, let me try to zoom this, and I'm gonna remove this because it's now interfering with the lesson. So as you can see, our first list item is added there. I can replicate this as many times as I want, and since this is an ordered list, it's going to update the numbers automatically. And basically this is an ordered list in HTML. An unordered list, on the other hand, is written with the tag UL, and the same thing is going to happen. Let's say you're going to have your list items in between an LI tag. Our unordered list here is displayed like this, and there are no numbers here since it's unordered. Their items appear in no specific order. Another thing you can do regarding lists is you can nest a list inside another list. For example, within this list here, I can have another list. Let's say I'm going to have an unordered list within this list, and I'm going to add my list items here again, and that will appear like this. So basically, you can do this in any scenario. Let's say you are writing a tutorial which needs specific steps which need to be followed in order. You can use an ordered list. Or if you are writing a recipe or something, you can use an unordered list to list your ingredients or something like that. Remember when I said there are only 2 types of lists? Well, I kind of lied. There's actually a third one, which is a definition list, but there's not really an interesting use case for this one. But let's explore it in case you run into a scenario where you'll need to use it. A definition list allows you to define multiple terms as well as their definitions. To use it, you will need to write the DL tag. Inside the DL tag, we are going to have a list of terms and their definitions. The term is going to be surrounded by a DT tag, and its definition is going to be in the DD tag, and that will appear like this in your website. I can copy and paste this multiple times to have a list of terms and definitions. Basically, you can use this on your website when you have a scenario where you need to display a list of terms and their definitions. Maybe a common example of this could be in the About Us page of your website. You can have a frequently asked questions section where you will have a list of questions and their answers. The last thing I want to show you about list is that in the unordered list here, our list items are denoted by circles by default, but you can change this one using CSS. Even though we haven't started with CSS yet, let me show you how to do this. In your UL tag here, you will need to add styles. Inside the style attribute, you are going to say list style type, and from here you can say square to make our list items a square. There are other list types like decimals, discs, alphabets, Roman numerals, etc. And that's all you need to know about lists in HTML. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. In the previous lesson, we looked at how to work with lists in HTML. In this video, I am going to show you how to work with links. If you remember correctly, in the definition of HTML, we said it's hypertext. So the hyper part of that definition is where anchors come into play. That basically means that we are able to link different pages into our page. You can link to a page that's available on our website, or we can link to external websites. So basically, to link things in HTML, we are going to need to use the anchor tag. The anchor tag takes in one attribute, which is href. Here, we are going to basically need to provide the address of the HTML page we need to link to. If I want to go to Google, I'd basically put in Google's URL, which is https and then google.com. And once I've provided this attribute, I can place the word Google in between our opening tag and our closing tag. And this will appear in our page like this. So when I click it, it's going to take me to google.com. So I've basically just linked my page here to an external site. This is called an absolute link. If I wanted to link to a page that's available on my system, I'd basically need to create that page here. Let's say I'm going to have about us page.html, and I'm going to try to fill that with some lorem ipsum text. I'm going to give it a heading. Let's say h1. Let's say this is going to be our about us page. And I'm going to add our about us text here. So back to our index.html page. In order to link to this page I just created here, I still need to use the anchor tag. But in our href attribute here, I'm going to need to provide a relative address, not an absolute address. So I don't need to provide the entire domain here. What I need to do is basically just write about.html like that. And what I'll say is about us here. And when I go back to my page, where's my page? You can see I have two links, the one for Google and the one for About Us. If I click the About Us one, you can see that I can see my About Us page here. So in this file here, I don't need to provide the HTML of my website. For example, let's say website /aboutus.html because this page here, it exists on our own server here or on our own computer here. So I don't need this. Another attribute for the anchor tag is the target attribute. And this one, it basically allows us to pick and choose how our link is opened. If I provide the attribute blank here, you'll notice that when I go back to my page and click on this thing, it will open another tab. As you can see, this link opens another tab instead of opening it within this tab here. So when I click this again, you can see it will open another tab. So that's that target blank attribute I just added. That's what that one does, is if you want the browser to automatically open a new window or a new tab when your link is clicked. Let's go back to our About Us page here. Another thing I can show you is that it is also possible to link within the same page. Let's say I have a very long page and I need to place a link here for something that's at the bottom. To do that, I can do it like this. Let's say within this paragraph here, I add another section. Okay, let's say H2, and this section will be our founder. Let's say I have text here that's talking about the founder of the company or something like that. Oh, damn. The Lifesaver extension is complaining that I don't have a body tag. So this HTML page is not valid. Let me try to fix that. I'll just cut this and I'll use exclamation to generate this. And here I'm going to say About Us page. Always make sure that you represent your HTML page accurately. It must start with this structure here. So I'm going to paste my page here. And let me see. All right. This is looking good. This is accurate. As you can see, the title is there, our About Us, and our founder section is here. Let's say this page was like long, and at the top here, I'd basically have to say A and then href, and then here in our href attribute, I need to put an ID. So what I can do is in our heading here, I can put an attribute ID and let's say founder. Once I've given this an ID, I can then go back to our anchor tag here and say hashtag founder like this, and then I can close that off and I can say our founder like this, and that will render a link here. So basically when I click this link, it's gonna navigate to this section here. It's not visible because my page is too small, so I'm gonna duplicate this text here to make it longer. As you can see, now our page is very long. The user needs to scroll down to find our founder here. So when I click this link here, it will automatically scroll to this section here, as you can see. So you can link to different pages, or you can link within the same page using the ID attribute and a hashtag here. In addition to the href attribute here, each link also needs a title attribute. This basically describes the page that the link is linking to. So here I'm going to say our founder page and then save. And this title will basically appear when you hover over the link like this. Another thing I want to show you about links is that you can use them to download files. Let's say in my folder here, I had a file that I wanted the user to download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download a file. Let's say our founder, he wrote a memoir that I need my users to be able to download. I'm going to save that as a PDF. I'm going to say memoir.pdf. And I'm going to save that to my websites folder here. And here is our memoir here on our website folder. So for our users to be able to download this file, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to scroll down to the bottom. And at the bottom here, I am going to say a and then href. For the href, I'm going to say memoir.pdf. This is basically the link to the file the users need to download. And I will say download here. And I'll provide a file name within the download attribute here. So I'll say memoir.pdf. And then I'll close this and I'll say download memoir like this and then save. And when I go back to my page and click on this link here, you can see that our memoir is being downloaded to our local storage here. So this is how you allow your users to download files using the anchor tag. And by the way, anything can be a link. You will see this in the next video, but you can basically make any element a link. This title here can be a link. I can wrap an anchor tag around an image to make that clickable. I can also wrap it around a button to make that button a link. The last thing you need to learn about links is that you can use them for emailing. Let's say you wanted to email someone. Okay, let me erase this and then put this here. Okay, let's say I had an address. Let's say here I have address like this and I have a P, and here I have my email address. Let's say my address is vector@gmail.com. As you can see, our email is accurate here. It's written within the address tag, but to make it more useful, I can make this a link. So what I can do is I can wrap this within an anchor tag. So I can say a here and then href, and then let's say vector@gmail.com. Can save this like that, and as you can see, this is now a link, but our href attribute here is empty. So what we can do is we can say mail to, and then provide the email. Let's say vector. So once you click on our link here, what it's gonna do is gonna launch your emailing program of choice, and it's gonna take you to the email composition page of your emailing software with your email pre-filled in. In the next lesson, we will look at how to work with images with HTML. Basically how to display images on your HTML page, because our HTML pages up to this point have been blank, just text. Thanks for watching, and I will see you then. In the previous video, we looked at links and how to work with them. In this video, we are going to be looking at images and how to work with them. The first thing I need you to do is go to GitHub and find that repo I gave you at the beginning of the lesson. In this repo, you are going to find resources you can use to help you in your web development journey. One of the resources we have here is this website here. You have these websites for images. Basically, images on the internet are not free. You can't just take them and use them in your website, but these ones are absolutely free. You can use them in your website for free. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open pexels.com, and here we are going to find a list of images we can use on our website. So in order to demonstrate how to link images to our HTML document here, I'm going to need to go back to HTML here. In order to display an image on your HTML page, you are going to need to use the image tag. This tag takes in the source attribute, and this is where you are going to need to provide the address of the image you want to link. So if I go back to pexels.com here and then select an image, let's say I'll try to use this one. I'll say copy image link and go back here and paste the image link here and close that off and save it. If I go back to my page, you will see that this image is now displayed on our HTML page here. Another important attribute you are going to need to provide for your images is the alt tag. This is basically alternative text. you are going to need to describe what you see in the image here. And you're going to need to be as descriptive as possible, because this is going to be used if, let's say, the browser can't find this image. It's going to display this text here. And also, if you are using a web reader for someone who's blind, they can be able to access your website and know what the contents of the image contain through audio. So here, this is a beautiful, let's say beautiful picture depicting autumn. Okay, like that. If I was to, let's say, remove this link here and click on save, you'll see that what's displayed is the alternative text here, as you can see. Or let's say if this link was somehow wrong or it was somehow inaccessible, you'd be able to see that here there's supposed to be an image, and that image is an image of autumn. Another attribute you can provide for your images is the size. Let's say I wanted the width to be 200 pixels, like that. And you can see our image is now 200 pixels. And also the height, you can say height here. And then let's say that's 500 pixels. You can see that the aspect ratio is kind of messed up. So a good practice is only to provide one of these. Let's provide the height only so that the aspect ratio is correct. If you provide only one, the image automatically recalculates the other and it keeps the aspect ratio of the image. So another way to link an image is if you have an image in your website here. So if I go back to pixels, let's say I search an image of web development. I'm going to take this image and I'm going to download it. Once I've downloaded this image, I'm going to copy it into my website folder. If I go back to Visual Studio Code, I can see that there's a folder here with my image inside it. So I can basically create another image tag. Oh, let me erase this one. Okay, I can say image and then source. And instead of providing an absolute path or a URL here, I can just say images and then the name of the file. And I can close that and save. And our image is displayed here, although it's too big. Let me say its width is like 200 pixels to reduce its size. So as you can see, our image is displayed on our page here. And the aspect ratio is okay. For the alt tag, I can use a picture of a studio or maybe a workstation for a web designer or web developer. Another attribute you can provide is the title. Let's say web development for the title, and that will be displayed when, let's say, you hover over the image. All right, you can see this web development, it appears. This is how to link an image. You can use the absolute path or you can use the relative path like this. Let's talk about image placement next. Let's say I have a paragraph here. An image can be placed on top of the paragraph here outside, or you can cut this and place it within the paragraph. You can do this if the image is part of the paragraph. Once you've added an image inside a paragraph, you can also use the align tag to align it. As you can see, this will align the image to the left or to the right. Let's say align center. I can say center here, and that will align the image in the center. Or maybe I can say right and save. This will align this image to the right. There's a wide range of image formats you can use on the web. For example, this image I'm using here is a JPEG here. But let's say I wanted to use something that has no background. For that, I can use a PNG. If I wanted to use something that was moving, I can use a GIF. Let's say I was creating a meme website or something. I was gonna be trying to use GIFs. Let's say copy image link and then replace this with that image link and click on save. And as you can see, our GIF is added to our web page here. So for moving images, you can use the GIF format. For images without backgrounds, you can use PNGs and You can use a JPEG if you just have a regular image. Another thing you must note is that the images on your website are going to affect your loading speed. So it is very important that they are as small as possible. So you can use an image compressor to compress your images so that your website loads faster. The one I love to use is this one. Try to compress it to 80% and that will reduce the size. Another thing you will need to learn is how to create graphics for yourself. For example, I use Photoshop to create graphics for my websites. Basically, what I do is I go to pexels.com and I find an image that I like. These are stock images, so they're basically used on many websites. So to make mine feel unique, I use Photoshop to edit them. For example, you can see this graphic here. This is a header image for one of my websites, the website that I'm going to give you at the end of this tutorial. And I basically took a stock image and I created this image here. Another one is this one. So basically I found a stock image of a guy, I removed the background and I created this graphic in Photoshop. If you don't want to use Photoshop, the one I started designing with is Canva. I have a link in that GitHub repo I provided to you guys to Canva. And also I have an affiliate link in the description down below. So if you sign up for Canva, please do that using my link in the description down below. And this will basically just help you in your graphics design knowledge. You don't have to design anything yourself. You can just use a template and modify it. So I think with that, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at tables. Thanks for watching and I will see you in the next one. In this video, we are going to be looking at how to arrange information in a tabular format using HTML. In order to create a table in HTML, you are going to need to use the table tag. Inside the table tag, you can have a caption. This basically describes what the table is. So here, I'm going to say current UFC employees. And as you can see, our caption is displayed there. Inside the table tag, once you've defined your caption, you are going to need to define the head of the table with the tag thhead. Inside this head, we are going to have our headings. So create a row with the tr tag, and that tr tag is going to contain th tags, which are headings. So to break this down, we have a thhead tag here, which is table head, and inside it we have a row. This row is going to contain th tags, which are headings. So the first heading here is going to be name, and I'm going to add more headings here. Our headings will be bold by default. Once we've defined our headings, we are going to need to define the body of our table with the tag tBody like this. And within our body, we are going to have rows. So I'm going to say tr. And within our rows, we are going to have td, which is our cells. It's important to know that we can put almost anything in our tag here. We can put images or maybe links in here. So you are allowed to put whatever you want inside our columns or our cells here. The first record is going to be me, so I'm going to say my name's Vector. And then I'm going to copy this and paste this 5 times. It's important to note that if you have 5 headings here, you are going to need to have 5 columns here in your row. For my surname, I'm going to say my surname's Matabela. And then for my age, I'm 24. And then my weight, let's say, I don't know, 70 pounds. And my gender, I'll say male. We've now added our first row in the body. So that appears in our HTML like this. To add another row, we simply duplicate this multiple times. We can have as many rows as we want, and those will appear like this. Let me insert other information in here so that it is more clear. So this is the structure of a table in HTML. It's possible for one heading here to span 2 columns. Let's say for an example, I remove this surname here and you'll see that we are now missing a heading here. What I can do to fix that is go into this column here and say call span and say 2, and that heading will now span 2 columns. We can change this one to, let's say, full name, and that will represent the fighter's name. To style the table, you are going to need to go above here and create a styles tag. Using the styles tag, we are going to select the table and the headings as well as the columns, and we're going to say border black and save that. And as you can see, our table now has borders. In order to remove the double borders here, you are going to say border collapse and then collapse. Also, if I want the table to take 100% of the width, I can go up here and say table and then width 100% to set the width to 100%, and that will allow the table to take 100% of the available space. The values within our table are not aligned, so I'm going to go and say text align center to center everything. To increase the padding of the columns, I'm going to say TH and then TD and then padding 10 pixels. Basically, the padding is the space between the text and the border. For the caption, I'm going to say caption and then margin bottom, let's say 20 pixels. These kinds of tables are very common and they're used on the web a lot. But there's also another style of table where you don't have a border here, so I'm going to remove the border, and now our columns don't have borders anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the rows with the tag TR, and in the TR I'm going to say border bottom 1 pixels solid and then black, and that will put a border between the rows here. As you can see, that looks good. To take it a step further, we can also apply a background color to our rows here. When someone hovers over the table, we are going to change the background color slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the same background color and I'm going to make it more blue and then save. And when you hover over a row here, you can see that the background of that row changes. There's sometimes this effect where the background colors of the rows alternate. To do that, you are going to have to select the table here and then put in nth child here and then say even. And what that will do is it will apply a background color to every other even element. To show you how this looks, I'm going to go back to our table here and I'm going to duplicate our rows. I need more rows, so I'm going to add more rows here. I'm going to save. And as you can see, our table now looks like this. When displaying data in table format on your website, it's very important to style it minimally. So for styling the table, I am going to leave it here. I hope this video helped. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. In this video, we are going to look at how to use the audio and video tags. In my main folder here, I have an audio file and also a video file. I'm going to be using these two to show you how to use these two tags. Let's start with the audio file first. In order to play audio in your HTML web pages, you are going to need to use the audio tag. Inside the audio tag, you can provide the source attribute. In here, you are going to need to provide the URL of the file you want to play. Please make sure that this is not a YouTube link, but an absolute URL. If your audio file is available on your device or on your server, we are going to need to close the audio tag like this. Inside the audio tag, we are going to need to provide a source for the audio file with the source tag. And in the source attribute, we are going to need to provide the path to the file we need to play. So since my audio file is within the same folder, I am just going to provide the name for that file. The next thing you need to supply is the type. And the type is basically made out of audio and then the format or the extension of the file you provided. So for mine, it's going to be audio/mp3 because my file here is an mp3 file. So when I save this, you will see that nothing is rendered on my page here. And that's because I need to provide one other attribute in the audio tag here, and that is controls. This is required for the user to be able to play, pause, and change the volume of the audio. There are other attributes I'll show you how to add, but this controls attribute is required. So when you provide the controls attribute, you can now see that our audio file is rendered on our page here. We can play it, we can pause, we can change the volume, we can mute it, and we have a progress bar here to change the duration. In addition to the controls attribute here, you also have a range of other attributes you can use to manipulate your audio file here. One attribute you can add is autoplay. And this basically autoplays the audio when you refresh the page here. So every time this page is loaded, it's going to autoplay the audio. These can be very annoying for users, so you can use the muted attribute in order to mute the audio file. When you reload the page, you'll see that the audio file autoplays, but it is muted by default. The user will have to unmute the file themselves. And the last attribute I want to show you for the audio is loop. Basically, this allows the audio to repeat once it reaches the end of the audio file. So every time it reaches the end, it will reset and start again. For compatibility's sake, you can add multiple file formats here. So let's say I had this song in another format. Add another source here and just change the file name and also change the extension here. The audio tag supports 3 file formats: MP3, WAV, and OGG. If you are using a browser from 2010 or something, you might find that the audio tag is not supported by your browser. To account for this case, you can provide a text here explaining to the user that their browser doesn't support the audio tag. So here I'll write your browser doesn't support audio and save. And this text will be rendered if the audio tag is not supported by the user's browser. The last thing I want to show you about audio are event attributes. Event attributes are basically attributes we can use to trigger certain actions when a certain event occurs. For example, we can do something when the user plays or pauses the audio. Let me show you an actual example here. So in my audio tag here, I'm going to say on play. And in on play here, I'm going to say alert. And let's print the message playing. So when the audio is played here, you'll see that an alert or a pop-up is rendered on screen saying playing. These can also apply when the audio is paused with the event attribute on pause. So here I'm going to change this to paused. So when I save, you'll see that when I pause the audio file, we get our message here. You can basically use this to manipulate the audio based on certain triggers. You have a wide range of event attributes, including on progress, on volume change, on abort, etc. It is possible to write a script outside. So when our event is triggered here, it's going to trigger this function here. This basically allows you to add more things in here without ruining the readability of your code by adding it all in here. That's it for the audio tag. We are going to take a look at the video tag next. These two tags are very similar, so we are going to be using the same attributes. In order to play a video using HTML on your page, you are going to need to use the video tag. Inside the video tag, you can provide the source if your video is online, but if your video is offline and available on your computer or server, we are going to need to close this up. And also, we need to provide controls here. This is required. In here, we are going to provide a source for our video. So I'm going to say source and then video slash and then put in the name of my video file here. After that, I'll need to provide the type, which is video slash mp4. And close that up and click on save. And we'll see that our video file is rendered here, but it's too big. So I can go back here and say width is equals to, let's say, 300 pixels. And you can see that our video file is rendered here, and we have all our controls. We can play, we can change the volume, we have our slider, and we can go full screen. The height attribute is also available for us to use, so we can say height, let's say 300 pixels to make our video a square. The autoplay, muted, and loop attributes are also available for video. So these basically do the same thing they did in the audio. One autoplays the video, one mutes it, and the other basically restarts the video every time it ends. A new attribute that is available only for video is the poster attribute. This basically allows you to set the thumbnail of the video. So here I'm going to say video, and then I'm going to provide an image and save. And you will see that, let me remove the autoplay attribute here so that the video doesn't autoplay. And I'm going to save this, and you'll see that when our video is paused at the beginning, it's going to show our thumbnail here instead of the video. If I remove this, it's going to show you the first frame of the video, but when I provide the poster attributes and my image, it's going to display my video thumbnail instead. The video tag also supports event attributes, so you can use certain events to trigger certain actions. These events include on play, on pause, on progress, etc. I will leave a link to a reference down below so that you can view all the event attributes available for you to use with the video tag. With that said, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. In this video, we will take a look at the navigation tag. As you might have already guessed, the navigation tag is used to contain navigation links. In order to use it, you just write nav and then close it. Inside our nav tag, we are going to have anchor tags. So I'm going to say A and then href. I'll put a hashtag in here because I'm linking to nothing yet. And then I'll close this up and type home and save. And that will be our first navigation link. I'm going to put in a divider here and move on to the next link. The next link will be about us. So I'm going to write about us here. And then I'm going to copy these two and duplicate them multiple times. And I'm going to change their content. By default, our navigation tags are going to appear like this. We've already covered anchor tags, so hopefully you've watched that video so you know how to use the anchor tag. What I'll show you in this video is that we can change the appearance of our navigation links here using the styles tag. In the styles tag, we are going to write some CSS to change the appearance of our navigation links here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select nav and then select A. Inside our selector here, I'm going to say text decoration and then none. These will basically remove the underlines on our nav actions here. Another thing we can do is we can say margin right 10 pixels. This will basically just add a space to the right of each of our items here to space them apart. We will cover how to style this more in detail in the CSS section of this course. For now, just note that you can use the navigation tag to link all your main pages, and this should appear at the top of each and every one of your page. With that said, thanks for watching, and let's look at HTML forms in the next video. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at HTML forms. HTML forms are basically used to collect information from the users. For example, login information, comments, emails, file uploads, etc. In order to create a form in HTML, you are going to need to use the form tag. The form tag takes in two attributes, the action and the method. The action is basically the link to your database or to the file that's going to be used to process the data that's going to be submitted in the form. For now, I'm just going to put in a hashtag here. And the other attribute for the form tag is the method. In here, we will just say post, because we are going to be using this form to post data instead of fetching data. In order to collect information about our users, we are going to need to use the input tag. The input tag takes in the attribute type, and in here I'm just going to say text because this first input field is going to be for our username. So for the name, I'm going to say username, and I'm going to close that and save. As you can see, our input field is rendered here and there's nothing inside it. To put something inside it to guide the user, we can place a placeholder here. So I'll say placeholder, enter username and save. And as you can see, we now have a placeholder within our input field here. The input tag is often used with a label to provide a label for the user to know what the input field is supposed to contain. So here I'll say label and I'll say for. Inside the for, I'm going to need to put in the ID of our input field. So I'm going to go back to our input field here and say ID and then say username. And here in our label tag, I'm going to say for username because that's the ID of our input here. And I'm going to close that. And within this element here, I'm going to say username. And as you can see, this will appear like that. So this is basically a complete input field for our username. The next input type you are going to need to know is for the user's email. So what I'll do is I'll say label and then I'll say for email. And in here I'll say email and then I'll say input type email. Please notice that in the type here, I'm going to be using email instead of text. This is important because the text field will allow any type of input, but the email field will only allow emails to be inputted into it. So for the name, I'm going to say email, and for the placeholder, I'm going to say enter email. And finally, for the ID, I'm going to say email. And our input field for our email will appear like this. Another input type is the password. So for that, I'm going to say label and I'm going to say password, and then I'm going to say input type password. If you want to take the password of a user on your website, you have to use this input type instead of email or text. For the name, I'm also going to say password, and the placeholder, I'm going to say enter password. And for ID, I'm also going to say password and close this up. As you can see, our password field will be rendered like this. One thing that this password input does is that when I input text into our field here, you can see that it is hidden. In order to submit our form data, we are going to use another type of input, which is submit. So I'm going to say input type and then submit and then close this and save. And this will render a button here to submit our form. I can click on enter to submit our form. HTML offers form validation by default. So let's say all these fields were required and I didn't want the form to allow our users to submit the form with empty fields here. I was going to use the required attribute. So I'll go up here and say required. Now, when I try to submit our form here, you'll see that it will need me to input data into our form here. And also, you'll notice that if I input an email that is not in the correct email format, it's not going to allow me to submit the form. So, for your emails, use the type email. Don't use the type text. Another attribute that is available for all input types is the max length attribute. Let's say our password needs a maximum of 15 characters. I was going to go here and say max length is equals to 15 and save. And as you can see, if I try to input more than 15 characters here, it's not going to allow me to. Also, I can determine the minimum length of a password using the min length attribute. And I'm going to set that to 6 so that when I input like 2 characters and try to submit, you will see that it will tell me to input more characters in here. So this is how you do form validation in HTML. The next two input types I want to show you is the date and also the file. So in here I can say input type date, and this will basically allow the users to select a date using this date picker here. Another input type is the file. So let's say I wanted the user to upload their profile. What I do is I'd say label for, let's say, profile, and then let's say profile picture, and then below this I'm gonna say input type file and save. And basically what this will do, it will allow my users to pick a file for our profile picture. Yeah. As you can see, our form is now looking good. We have our username, our email, our password, our date, and our profile picture here. But let's say we wanted our users to be able to pick their gender on our website. What I'm going to do is I'm going to need to use the radio input type. So here's how to use that. For the gender of our user, I'm going to say label for, and let's say male, and close that, and then let's say male. Yeah. Let me try to erase the top part of our form here so that it doesn't interfere with what I'm doing now. Okay, once I have my label, I'm going to say input type and then radio here. For the radio tag, I also need the value, which is going to be male, and this also going to need an ID, which is going to be male, to match our 4 attribute in our label here. And the last thing we're going to need is the name, which is going to be gender here. And I'm going to close this and save. And as you can see, our radio button is rendered on our screen there. In order to allow female users to pick their gender, I'm going to copy this and paste it. For our label here, I'm going to say female. I'm going to change this to female, and then change this also to female. And our value is also going to be female. Our ID, female also. And I'm going to keep the name here the same so that our browser knows that these 2 input fields are for our gender here. So when I save, you'll see that both our radio buttons are rendered here. And if I select one, the other is deselected. So I cannot select both at the same time. This is because of the name gender here. So if I was to remove this and save, you'll see that I'm now able to select them both. So please make sure that they have the same name here. So our user can select either male or female. Okay, another input type is checkboxes. So let's say we wanted our users to be able to pick a career path for themselves on our site. For our careers, I'm going to say label for, and then CS, and then within our label here, I'm going to say computer sciences. And for our input, I'm going to say input type checkbox, and the value is going to be CS, the ID is going to be CS as well, and the name is going to be career. And as you can see, our checkbox for computer sciences is added here. In order to add more checkboxes, I'll just duplicate this multiple times, and I'm going to need to change all our texts here in order to include other careers. And as you can see, our checkboxes for our career paths here are added. You can style this to look beautiful using CSS, and I'll show you how to do that in the next part of this course. For now, I am going to try to show you 2 more tags for your HTML forms. So I'm going to erase this so that the next part is clear. If I write an input type text here and then close it and save, you'll see that our input tag here has a single line. So if I input text here and press enter, it's gonna submit my form. In order to get multiple lines here, what I'll need to do is use the text area tag like this. Basically, this one will allow me to input as much text as I want here, and I can press enter to go to the next line. Of course, I still need to put my label here so that our user understand what this input field is for. So I'll say label for, let's say, comments, and in here I'm gonna say comment, because the 4 attribute of our label here is comments. I'm going to need to go into the opening tag of our text area tag here and say ID comment. And as you can see, our text area will appear like this. Let me try to style it to make it full screen. I'll say styles and then width 100% and save. And that will make it appear like this. I can resize it and I can add as much text as I want inside our text area here. For a drop down menu, I can use the select tag here. Within the select tag, I'm going to use the option tag to define our options. And here I'm going to say option 1, and I'm going to duplicate this multiple times to define our other options. And I'm going to save this. And as you can see, our drop down menu is defined here. Also, we need a value here for each and every one of our options here. So here I'll say option 1, and then option 2, and then option 3, 4, 5, and 6. The value attribute in our options here is required because when I pick an option here, this is the value that is going to be sent to the database, not the text in here. So basically, this is how to create forms in HTML. Hopefully, I've showed you all the inputs you are going to need for each and every type of information that you are going to need to collect from your users. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.